like the Jordan Johnson situation was going to probably play out where he'd be facing an indefinite suspension from the team. Trent came back from Hawaii early, started working with the guys. They going to throw arounds and doing things like that, and really just putting time into it. It was something to watch him progress. He did not enter fall camp as the starter. Shea Smithwick-Hahn, out of the now the number 2 quarterback, came in and took the first few snaps, and within 2 days, Trent had passed him and just took the reins and ran with it. Watching him progress was something through fall camp, and then quite honestly, it was funny. I was telling people going into this game, expect mistakes. And, the interception, I don't know if that went through a receiver's hands and was grabbed by another guy. It was a little high. But, he exceeded my expectations in the first game. It was pretty wild. He had a great quote after the game where people were thinking, okay, he's a 19-year-old kid. He had to be nervous out there. And he talked about he was nervous the first 2 plays. And then after that, the crowd went away. Everything just zoned out, and all he, just focused on the play, the snap count, and go. And he just locked in, and he really impressed. I was, he's got some stuff. His short range, he's deadly accurate. He is good with the zone read. In terms of, it's funny, speed and running the ball, he's actually a better athlete, I believe, from my observation watching him, than Jordan Johnson was. His medium to deep passing is kind of where he looks a little bit more like an underclassman still. But that's coming along. He had a couple good deep connections, but really dialed in on that short game. Ran the offense incredibly well. Showed great plays there.
Yeah, it sounds like it with those stats. That you don't put those kind of stats up if you're not exactly like you said, grabbing the reins and taking off with the team. So, it sounds like you saw it at quarterback for a few years to go here now.
Yeah, hopefully so. It's tough when you run this, and you guys see this too, because I know we're not exactly similar, but we've got an offense where, you ask the quarterback to run a bit, and of course, running quarterbacks, durability is a concern. Haven't seen any issues of note yet with, Trent there, so hopefully, stays healthy, stays upright, and keeps playing really well. And, I'd love to have 4 years in McKinney if this Saturday was an indication of what we'll be getting out of them.
Yeah, that's great. It's, obviously I'm not in any position to, talk about what happened with Jordan Johnson, but, just as an Appalachian fan, I feel like there's a lot of mutual respect between the Appalachian and Montana fan bases. And it's, I always hate to have something like that happen with, when you lose a starter to off the field stuff like that. And unfortunately, we've had to deal with that ourselves. It's good to see you guys have somebody step in there and really, step in there and take care of business and not have the team really suffer too badly from that loss. So that's definitely good to hear. It sounds like we're going to have a game played at a high level this Saturday.
Oh yeah.
And on our side, we do have the advantage of having a little bit more experience at the quarterback position. Jamal Jackson's a redshirt junior. In terms of starting, he took over halfway through last year, and then obviously started our opening game this year. So he's got a little bit of experience under his belt, and he had a good game on Saturday for the most part, playing East Carolina, obviously on the road, an FBS opponent, 50,000 strong. There is a pretty big environment. He completed 23 of 40 passes, got 300 yards on them. Also spread the ball around 8 different receivers. Had 3 receivers that caught at least 5 balls. Similar to McKinnon, he did have a pretty costly interception late, but otherwise he was pretty sharp. And Montana, in their first game against South Dakota, they held them to only 172 yards on the air, through the air, but they did give up 2 touchdowns. One that was an 80-yard pass. In terms of limiting the big plays and kind of keeping the Appalachian State passing game in check behind Jamal Jackson, how do you like the Grizzlies secondary facing up against them?
That's going to be interesting. I think that could be, in terms of looking at it from my side as a Grizz fan perspective, that could be our biggest test and maybe one of the single biggest factors that determines how this game goes. 172 yards. We did have the 80-yard bomb. You back that out. We held them to under 100. That's pretty impressive. South Dakota, it's tough because, that's not a comparable team to say, okay, their quarterback, who was I think a true sophomore coming into his first start ever, as compared to a junior quarterback that played 7 games last year, threw for a couple thousand yards and ran for 300. On the way to an 8-4 record like you guys had last year. So different comparison. One thing, the 80-yard bomb, it actually beat Josh Denard, one of our backup cornerbacks, and we had our other starter, Nate Harris, was serving a 1-game suspension for a violation of team rules. And so it's going to be interesting, of course, ifs and buts, but if Nate were in there, who as a redshirt freshman has showed incredible poise, people have been saying him and Sean Murray are just head and shoulders as our 2 best corners. Would that have even come? So how's our secondary going to look there? But so Nate's going to be playing his first game against you guys, and that's a pretty big first game for him to suit up for. It's going to be a major test. Murray on the other side, he's a junior. He's been backing up third-round NFLer Tremaine Johnson. Murray played really well, and he has played well in backup roles the last 3 years. So I think that it's going to be a big test. Our safeties are experienced. We got sophomore Matt Hermanson and then junior Bo Tully in the middle. We've got a little bit of inexperience behind them with Rominger and Tully, but, I look at the way that App State spread the ball around, and it's really going to hinge on how well Harris and Murray can continue to contain and play these guys. I think in the middle, Hermanson and Tully will be pretty disruptive and be able to hold their own, especially in the passing game. We got the speed and the skill, but these are young, untested guys, especially on the edges, and we're going to just have to see how it goes. You guys have some incredibly talented wide receivers. I think your big 6'5" guy is out, though, right? So at least we might not have to match up against him, but it's going to be huge, and we're marginally untested, so we'll have to see how it plays out on the field.
Yeah, you are right. Sean Price is our the guy that came into the season, number 1 wide receiver. He's a young guy, redshirt freshman, but he's 6'5", 210, good speed, and unfortunately he's serving a 2-game suspension for violation of team rules. So you guys won't have to deal with him. And in his place, last week Malachi Jones, a true freshman out of Georgia, came in and started for us, and he had a real nice game. Caught 6 balls in his first game, and on the road against an FBS opponent, he looked pretty good. So we'll kind of have to see how that shakes out, but it should be a good matchup, because that sounds like there's a pretty good secondary you guys have with one of your starters coming back against a young but also talented group of wide receivers here at Appalachian. That's a pretty deep and is one of the strengths of our offense. So I think that's going to be a big key to how this game turns out.
Oh yeah,
definitely. And the other key is going to be running game, of course. And last week against South Dakota, you guys put up 315 yards on the ground, led by Dan Moore and Peter Wen, an average 4.9 yards per carry. And against ECU, App surrendered 148 yards with an average of 4.2 yards per carry. So we're typically strong against the run, but we didn't show that great last week, and you guys showed tremendous ability on the ground. So what are your expectations for Montana's production on the running game this weekend?
I'm expecting big things. And it starts with the O-line. Grizzly O-line is very experienced. We graduated 3 guys. All 3, I believe, got shots in the pros or, mini campaign fights and things like that. But our O-line coach, Scott Gregg, he firmly believes in rotating a lot of the young guys in. Against South Dakota last week, I think we rotated either 8 or 9 offensive linemen in. We'd play the backup tackle, Schmang, would get a series, and then Kayla Keeney at guard would come in, and one of the Hines brothers would come in at center. And no matter who we had out there, we just rolled up South Dakota. I mean, almost 5 yards per carry. And we've got a big, strong, and mean O-line. I think of our projected starting 5, I want to say we're averaging about 6'4" and like 305 or 306 on the line. So then you throw in our backs, and what's funny is, and I don't know the situation, but he didn't play in the first half, arguably probably our most complete running back, Jordan Canada, didn't even play much of the game. I think he had 2 touches, and that was it. So, what App's going to see is they're going to see Peter Wynn, who is very tough to tackle, small, shifty, fast guy, real agile. Dan Moore, who is being scouted by the NFL as a fullback, just a giant, powerful runner. And then Jordan Canada, also a little bit shorter, kind of like Peter Wynn, but great top speed, real good high gear. Coaches are, real excited about all 3 of these guys. And then, you add in Trent McKinney, who can run as well, too. So you've got 4 different types of rushing attack that's coming your way. Behind that O-line, with the push they got, and they were moving around a pretty good-sized D-line with South Dakota there. Granted, a pretty inexperienced one, though. That's going to be, I would anticipate that is what we are going to try to do. I saw how Eastern Kentucky, or ECU, was, controlled the clock and slowed the game down a bit. We run our offense a lot like Oregon. It was funny, you could see we had coaches and players a little frustrated because the officials had stopped the games a few times because we were running that hurry up so fast. We've got some similarities to the Oregon offense that we run. So it's, hurry up and snap, go, and sending guys in and out and in and out. So, once you get used to one guy, here comes another and here comes another. So that's going to be a real big part of our offense. And having that running game is probably what's also helped Trent McKinney ease in, because we don't need to throw the game on his back and be like, okay, you got to throw it 40 times and you got to be, going 10-plus yards per completion, stuff like that. So it's going to be a huge part of the game, and you're going to get to see all 3 of them, if not maybe even a few more guys as well, too.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring up the pace of the Montana offense. That's one thing that I really think is going to make this game a lot of fun to watch from a spectator standpoint, because the Appalachian offense is very similar. Under Scott Satterfield, who has been away from Boone for the last 3 years, came back, is now the offensive coordinator. He is much the same. He wants to run the offense as fast as you can, and so that's something where both these offenses want to rush to the line. They both want to get up there. They both want to have kind of that quick strike Oregon type of offense. But, then when you look at the other side of it, both these defenses are used to practicing against that kind of offense. So it's something, right? I don't think the conditioning is going to be a problem on either side of the ball. I think both defenses know what's coming to them. And, that kind of high-speed offense should make this game a very, very entertaining game to watch, no matter who comes out on top. So it's interesting you bring that up, because both these offenses have very similar schemes.
Yeah, you look at our stat book, we ran 98 plays on offense against South Dakota, and we set a record with, what was it, a team record, I believe it was, with 36 first downs in the game.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just hoping, after talking about all these running backs you have, I'm hoping I'm not going to have nightmares of one of them like I had of Chase Reynolds after the 2009 game.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that was a great game for Chase. That was a fun one, for at least on my side of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of keeping in that same speaking about the running game, kind of now I guess on the other side, defensively, Montana really held South Dakota down. They weren't able to get anything going on the ground. They only had 61 yards rushing. And from Appalachian standpoint, we unfortunately lost our starting running back in the opener. Rod Chisholm broke his hand. Going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So we're going to be leaning on Stephen Miller, who's a senior. He's going to be, I guess, from a Montana standpoint, more the Peter Wynn kind of role. He's a smaller guy. He's only 5'8", 180, but he is really, really fast, and he's a nightmare in open space. He's not necessarily between the tackles runner, but he's a great athlete, and the guy that we might be looking to put in there to pick up some of the slack from Chisholm now that he's injured is a true freshman, Tyshawn Holloway. He's physical guy, 6'1", 210 pounds. He's between the tackles run. He's a guy I think we were hoping to redshirt with Chisholm expected as a starter, but we're thinking we might be putting him in next week. He's obviously very inexperienced as a true freshman. He is a very physical runner. He's a highly recruited guy. He turned down offers from Duke and North Carolina and Georgia Tech to come to Appalachian and try to get on the field a little sooner. And last week, due in part to injuries and due in part to playing a really good front seven from an FBS team that's supposed to be contending for a Conference USA championship and a bowl bid this year.